Trump has always been a man of two voices, one for the cameras, laden with grand pronouncements, hyperbole, and political showmanship, the other behind closed doors, often pragmatic, calculated, and sometimes contradictory. And this duality, this Janus-like ability, is central to his political style, at times baffling allies and enemies alike. In his recent meeting yesterday with the Prime Minister, with Keir Starmer, provides yet another case study in how Trump's public and private rhetoric diverges. Publicly, Trump showered Starmer with effusive praise. The UK Prime Minister was special. King Charles was a beautiful man. Even Starmer's accent was beautiful. For a president who once dismissed Britain as a weakened post-Brexit power, it makes very very little sense, and it's a remarkable shift. The meeting was framed as a reaffirmation of the special relationship, with Starmer extending a state visit invitation from King Charles and Trump dangling the prospect of long, elusive UK trade deals. And specifically, this was warm and a diplomatic exchange. What a lovely signature, said Starmer. Yet the substance beneath the rhetoric tells a slightly different story. Starmer's key objective was securing a firm US commitment to back European peacekeepers in Ukraine in the event of a post-war settlement. And Trump, despite the bonhomie, flatly refused. I don't think so, he said, before pivoting to his well-worn argument that an economic minerals deal with Ukraine would serve as an efficient deterrent against Russia, and Zelensky is on his way to sign that today. But Starmer, eager to salvage something, called the discussion productive, though it was clear that Trump had not budged. The reality of the situation was evident. Despite the warmth of the press conference, Britain was getting very little beyond words. And the duplicity is classic Trump. His interactions with Ukraine provide another example. Only days before his meeting with Starmer, Trump publicly ridiculed the Ukrainian President Zelensky, calling him grossly incompetent and accusing him of losing track of billions in US aid. And on Truth Social, he even branded Zelensky a dictator without elections. Yet when confronted about these remarks in the Oval Office, he feigns incredulity. Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. It's a rhetorical sleight of hand, a strategic retreat without ever admitting fault. It maybe got a bit testy, he conceded, before affirming his intent to work with Zelensky. After all, Trump's treatment of NATO follows a similar pattern. While standing next to Starmer, he affirms his support for Article 5, the cornerstone of NATO's collective defence, but in private, he's long questioned America's commitment to the alliance, even suggesting that he might not honour it. His lukewarm assurances to Starmer about Britain's security, they can take care of themselves, but if they need help, I'll always be with them, did little to dispel doubts about how he would react in a real crisis. The pattern, in other words, is clear. Trump's public statements are designed to please the audience of the moment, while his private position often reveals a more transactional, self-serving logic. And European leaders have grown increasingly wary of this dynamic. Emmanuel Macron, in his meetings with Trump, wanted clarity about America's military commitments to Europe, but left with ambiguous reassurances. The message to allies is therefore unmistakable. Rely on Trump's words at your peril. This discrepancy extends to his posture towards Russia as well. Publicly, Trump claims he will secure peace in Ukraine through sheer deal-making prowess, but his private affinity with Putin, whom he describes as a man who won't violate his word, suggests an alarming degree of trust in a leader who has consistently acted in bad faith. But aren't they alike in that? Trump's confidence in Putin's honour stands in stark contrast to his suspicion of NATO allies, a stance that has left many European leaders deeply uneasy. Is there method to the madness? Trump's rhetoric, both public and private, is designed to serve his own immediate needs. When facing allies like Starmer or Macron, he offers just enough reassurance to maintain relationships, but he avoids firm commitments. When addressing his base or right-wing media, he leans towards a more isolationist, nationalist stance. And this inconsistency is not a flaw, it's a feature of his political strategy. And as Trump prepares for yet another potential term of chaos, and he's starting off with these 2 or 3 weeks of complete contradiction. And so understanding this duality, understanding this conflict is critical for world leaders, and it seems more intense than the last time. The UK, Europe, and NATO must recognise that warm words in press conferences don't necessarily translate into policy commitments. And the gap between Trump's public declarations and his private convictions is not just a quirk of his personality, it's a fundamental aspect of his approach to power. And that's something that probably hasn't really been seen before. Ultimately, Trump thrives in ambiguity. It's very Machiavellian. It allows him to be all things to all people, a deal maker, a nationalist, a friend to Britain, a skeptic of NATO, a hardliner on Russia, a peacemaker with Putin. And the real challenge for leaders like Starmer is navigating this paradox, deciphering when Trump means what he says, and when, as so often is the case, his words are merely another transaction in his ever-shifting game of influence.